Friends, good evening and welcome in to Deportes Nation, Soccer Tejas. We're starting our World Cup coverage literally live, literally at the conclusion of the first two games, the first two matches of the FIFA 2026, I should say, World Cup. It's been a long day already, and it will be many, many long days. I'm Alex Parra. It's always great to be with you. I hope you're watching us via several different platforms. We'd love for you to chime in. We'd love for you to follow us. We'd love to hear from you about your opinions about what this World Cup means to you, to me, to all of us. A lot to talk about. We'll have coverage throughout the tournament. And it's not just Alex Parra and my disheveled look here at this hour. It's, a little after 11 o'clock Houston time. But it's also my honor, my privilege to bring in the one and only, there you see him, Victor Araiza. Don Victor Araiza, how are you, sir? Great to see you. Happy World Cup. It's here finally,
World
Victor.
Cup opening match day. And like you said, it's not just your disheveled look, it's my disheveled look as well.
Wow. Well, at least I have a look. Let's put it that way. Victor, we have a lot to talk about. Please help me out. I know you follow on the social media. If people are asking questions, so they're commenting, so I'll rely on you. And friends, we've got a lot to talk about. And maybe, Victor, a place to start is really the nuts and bolts of what we know, the nuts and bolts of what's coming up in these 39 days. We're starting today, and the final will be played on July 19th. So there's a lot of soccer, of football, of calcio, of football to be played. You see the numbers on your screen, 104 total games, 48 nations. This tournament is expanded, Victor, for the first time, getting to 48 teams, hosted in 3 countries. We know Canada, Mexico, and the United States. And it's interesting how Texas plays a big part, Victor, of the tournament. We will have 7 matches here in Houston. Of course, we'll talk about those. Victor, we will be around those games as well. And Dallas hosting a total of 9. But what stands out to you, Victor, in the organization of this tournament? You know, you talk about Canada and Mexico being co-host, but really it's an American, it's a USA-centric World Cup. Is that fair to say?
Yes, maybe by numbers, right? By the venues, by the cities. A lot of the games, and certainly the knockout rounds, most of the knockout rounds going to be in the United States. But I think if the opening match day is any indication, hey, Mexico's got plenty of culture, soccer culture, and a different vibe than the United States and in Canada for sure.
Sure.
Obviously, that took the attention of the first match day. They had their own opening ceremony. It's not like before where it's the one opening ceremony for the whole tournament. Mexico had one. Canada will have one tomorrow, and the U.S. will have another one, so we'll get another 2. But again, I think just the pageantry, everything going on in Mexico, I would call it the revival of the mythical, what used to be called the Estadio Azteca,
sure,
that has hosted 2 prior opening matches, 2 World Cup finals, and not just any World Cup finals. Pictures of Pelé and Maradona hosting the World Cup trophy in that stadium. I know a lot has been made about, just the early impressions. People want the entire World Cup there. They're asking why the final wasn't at the Azteca, all these things. But I think that just shows you, what Mexico has brought to the table. And for me, the biggest thing, again, I call it the revival of this Estadio Azteca, because I think, yes, they modernized it and they remodeled it a little bit, but it's also, dressing it up, putting some money into it, right? Putting some effort, I would say, just kind of shows you what you could do with a stadium that already houses, or it's going to house 3 teams in Liga MX. Why for league play it couldn't be brought out like that in the same way, right? That shine that it brings for the opening match. I know a lot has to do with how full it is, all the stars, certainly the money that it costs to get in the building, and I know that's been a topic. But again, I think just a different view of the Azteca has just, for me, brought up that question of why can't can't this effort be put into Liga MX and its normal use?
Look, Victor, there's a lot to talk about relative to stadiums, relative to the arrangement with FIFA. We've seen some reporting, and you and I knew this, that it's really it's all tilted toward FIFA's favor. The revenue, the host cities, they're the ones.
That's part of the package.
That's part of the package that's been accepted. Some communities are now just getting wind of the details, and there's some discussion. You were mentioning what I still consider Estadio Azteca, Banorte or Mexico City Stadium for the World Cup, and how FIFA controls that as well. But there's some controversy at that stadium about los palcos, about the suites, and who owns them, who doesn't own them. So there's a lot of drama swimming in all of this, and in the next X amount of days, because I don't even want to count them, we'll be talking about all of that. So a lot to get to today, friends. And Victor, I think another maybe good place to start would be talking about this, the overall groups that we have. What stands out to you here? Obviously, we'll be talking about Group A, which action started today with the first two matches, and we'll have a little bit of a wrap-up on those games. But clearly tomorrow, we're talking about Canada opening in Group B, and then, of course, at Los Angeles Stadium, we'll have the USA opening up against Paraguay in Group D. But 48 teams here. There's a lot here to deal with.
Yeah, and I think the big takeaway is opportunity for some smaller teams, like a returning Haiti to the World Cup, or Scotland, who's also ending a long drought. Maybe even New Zealand, for example, that have gotten viral with Tim Payne. And again, what has been social media and the impact of or the popularity that the World Cup brings, and the offset of that. But I think, again, opportunity, because the fact that it's an expanded format now allows third place teams, I believe the 8 best, to advance, which is something that wasn't an option before. It was you either finish first or second in your group, and you really wanted to finish first because that would give you the easier matchup in the next round. But now I think, again, you can afford to maybe lose the opening game and regroup. Some of these smaller nations can dare to dream a little bit, get into the knockout stage, and then see what happens there. So I would say opportunity. That's the thing that I take away.
What about the conflict that we currently have? Hopefully it'll be resolved soon. But USA and Iran coming, Iran participating. There's so many storylines here, Victor. The political side, literally war between nations, history. The first match in Houston this Sunday, Victor, to me is so intriguing. Curaçao for the first time. Deutschland, I believe, 20 times have been in World Cups. Always one of the favorites. You talk about David versus Goliath. You talk about an opportunity for an upset. I mean, we can dream, right? I think any betting person would go with Germany, but it's those kind of intriguing matchups that I think make this very interesting. I also have the position in many ways, Victor, that this has kind of gotten a little bit diluted with 48 teams, that this used to be taken care of in qualifying, for instance. And in CONCACAF, we have 3 hosts that are already in, and then obviously some other teams like Panama coming in and also rounding it out. Let me ask you before we start talking about Group A, how do you see the U.S. the host nations opportunities? I think they each have to begin with a solid performance, and I think all 3 of them can get out of their groups at the minimum. Correct?
Yeah, and I think that's a byproduct of the expanded format, that there really isn't a group of death in this World Cup as there has been before, right? For example, England, Croatia would probably be the favorites out of that Group L, making it tough for a Ghana or a Panama. But again, because there's a third place at play, right, that you can advance through that way, it opens up the possibilities. That goes the same for the hosts. The USA, if they were to stumble for some reason against one of the teams in their group, because I think all 3, and all respect to Turkey, but I think all 3 on home soil should be accessible for the United States to potentially top that group. But even if they go in a second, even if they have a bad first round, and for some reason they squeeze in as a third, I mean, they still have a chance to go through the knockout and then regroup after that. Same goes for Canada, who hasn't won a World Cup game in its history, and they're going for history here, in that regard, and obviously trying to advance and see what they can do, see as far as they can go. Certainly with the surge that they've had in CONCACAF in recent years, and Curaçao might be overlooked. A lot of Dutch players that are nationalized. So maybe more competitive than people are going to give them credit for, because they just assume they're all from the island. But again, a nation that's debuting in this World Cup, in the previous format, would have it tough, right? To be one of the top two, they could go advance as the third place. So for me, I think it certainly lines up here nicely for the host nation, especially Mexico, that could potentially play up to 5 games on home soil. Most of them in Mexico City. They got one group stage game in Guadalajara. But I mean, think about that, to basically have 4 games at the Azteca, and potentially even one of them against England, and tell me that's not an advantage.
Wow, absolutely. Well, Victor, let's jump straight into it. And we already had today action, play in Group A, and unless we messed up our graphic, literally just minutes ago, we saw the second match in Guadalajara finish up with a victory for Korea. So we see the total points as of now, and early on. Let's talk about that Mexico victory over South Africa. 3 red cards in that game. An early mistake under pressure by South Africa, giving away that goal. Could this have been more for Mexico? Was it just enough? Victor, I got a little bored at some points in that match, but you know what? Maybe that's good for Mexico relative to we secured the 3 points. By the way, they did lose one of their defensive players in a late red card as well. How did you see the Mexico victory over the Republic of South Africa today?
Yeah, a lot of pageantry, obviously, with the opening ceremony, and then obviously the chills there of the national anthem, Alejandro Fernandez singing that. And again, I think you could see, my question going into this was, how were the players going to handle the nerves and the stage more than anything, the opening match? Mexico has had a lot of doubts, right, coming into this tournament, but this is basically, flip a blank page. And now it's kind of, but could that be a relief for these players and go out and kind of just play it out, or is it going to be a pressure, right?
Yeah.
Because that's, again, the mythical Estadio Azteca. It used to be
one
of the biggest home field advantages.
Yeah.
And it used to be all the pressure was on the opponents. And in recent years, all the pressure has been on Mexico as a host to perform, and anything, if they don't live up to it, they're underwhelming and they get the criticism. And so I think because of the patriotism of having it in home soil, you could see the fan base behind the team, different than, I think, again, in recent years, I think everybody wants to believe that this Mexico can do it, can do great things, can advance, can get as far as the quarterfinals, which has been what they've done the best in the World Cup, and both of those have been in the 2 previous World Cups that they've hosted.
Sure.
So I think you saw Mexico control that game. I think you saw them, should have had a bigger victory. But I think, and the manager Javier Aguirre said it the best. I think considering all the factors that went into this game, and maybe some of that pressure, I think they handled it well. They got the 3 points. Retroactively, when we see some of these other games, we might say, man, they should have gotten more out of that. But again, I think this format allows them to go through even as a third place. I don't think they're going to need that. I think and certainly this next game will define who's 1 and 2, because they'll face off here, Mexico and South Korea, in the next game. But I would say Mexico here could start building something, and it's looking promising.
You mentioned Korea, South Korea, picking up the 2-1 victory over Czechia. I still call it the Czech Republic, so I'm sure someone's going to beat me up about the pronunciation. They were down early, but came back. Son, by the way, who we watched with LAFC, one of the driving forces of that team. But again, I felt that what I heard from the crowd in Guadalajara was support for the Koreans, and really not for the European side in this case.
There's an affinity there with South Korea. There's a little bit of history from the previous World Cup, from the Russia World Cup where they faced off.
Sure.
South Korea saved them, right? Gave them a chance to advance to the next round. And then, the thing with Son, right? Ya eres Mexicano. So, but once again, I think it's a neat game. It's a neat matchup. But no question, Mexico is going to be expected to top this group, I think.
Sure.
And again, maybe this will be a realistic showing or a dose of reality, I guess I should say, if Mexico loses against South Korea. But it would be a good warning shot, right, as well, because then they could, again, going forward. I'm excited to see what happens.
Yes, sir. Do you? I mean, to me, literally after two matches, it's hard to draw conclusions. And so many times in group play, Victor, you see a good start for one team and then a total collapse in game two, or a red card or an injury that changes the complexion of that team and their run out of group stage. But we've gotten the first day at least out of the way. And that's a huge piece. Victor, help me out here. Social media. Thanks to all you that are watching us. We're live here in our World Cup wrap-up here, Deportes Nation, Soccer Texas. I'm Alex Parra. Beside me, the one and only Victor Araiza. If you're watching, we appreciate it. We know it's late, and we'll get accustomed to coming on literally after the end of the nightcap match, if you will, and talk a little bit of World Cup. How do you see this first day? And Victor, we'll also talk about the Houston connection we have, of course. We're based out of Houston, 7 matches coming here. And today also the Fan Fest kicked off. If any of you were at the Fan Fest watching the Mexico game, talk to us about your experience. Online, Victor, I see all kinds of things, some positive, some negative, some realities, which I think we also have to talk about, Victor. It's very hot in the city, and it's not always easy to be out in the 90-degree heat watching anything, doing anything for a couple of hours. What I did see about the Fan Fest, the official Fan Fest, was that people were waiting in line to get in, which was great, and then it had to be closed, which is we reached our capacity.
And that's not a surprise.
Correct.
We talked about that. I mean, when you have a capacity of 7,500, these games were going to be packed automatically, right? I mean, especially these Mexico games. I would imagine, Colombia plays, the U.S. Some of these teams, again, because Houston is a soccer city where, and again, for 7,000 people, I mean, this should be an automatic fill up. And again, if you've been down to that area, Pitch 25 and some of these other bars, right? Kings, Cobos is down there as well. You know how fast these places can fill up for soccer games, any soccer games, Champions League or just, Copa America or the international friendlies. So when you're talking about the World Cup, prior World Cups too, it's no question that this was going to happen. So I was telling people, hey, if you're going to go down for the opening day, you got to be there early because people are going to show up. People are going to make a line. People want to be there up front first. And without a surprise, before it was even kickoff, that place was already packed. They had to turn people away. Obviously, we knew some of the overspill was going to go into some of the bars down there. And then obviously Shell Energy Stadium, which we're looking here on screen, and the Dynamo, I believe, pulled in 12,000 people.
Think about that. Wow. That's more than attend a Houston Dash game, with all due respect, by the way, Victor. So you can see the energy that's building. And by the way, the Shell Energy Stadium and the Fan Fest basically adjacent, right next to each other. So maybe this was well planned relative to, if Fan Fest officially fills up, the overflow can come into the stadium. I mean, we're talking now about the possibility there of close to 30,000 people in that area.
I'd like to see a little bit more advertising because I think there was people that were leaving from the videos I saw, right? I think there's people that were, that were turned away and maybe didn't know.
Right.
The people reporting from down there as well maybe didn't know that Shell was an option. Because because I didn't hear it mentioned in some of these videos. I heard the bars being mentioned and come covered to that. So I wonder if more people would have gone to the stadium. But again, I think it's a promising first day. I don't think they're open for all days of the World Cup. I think it's only Mexico and U.S. watch parties, pretty much, if I'm not mistaken. So
we'll clarify that. That's a good question. I have slightly different information. I thought more games would be accessible, but by tomorrow evening we'll have a little better idea, friends, of what that looks like. Victor, help me out here. If there are questions online or comments, we'd love to hear them. We'd love to have you interact with us. We're going live. We're going to be doing this every evening during our World Cup coverage. This will grow relative to, well, first of all, we will look worse than we do now. So that
it's only going downhill.
It's only going to go downhill. So take the snap now. That's the happy picture. That's the handsome picture of Alex before it gets too crazy. Victor, we talked about the fan watch parties and hosted at the Fan Fest officially. By the way, Patty Smith doing a great job there. And look, you can't please everybody. Someone's going to have something to complain about, but it's really bringing us together. And what you're watching again is some of the images from Shell Energy Stadium. But Victor, we also had the opportunity, or I did, in collaboration with Fox 26 and Nate Griffin, to talk about soccer. And they've done a great job in covering the sport up to this point, locally, of course, with the games being televised on Fox 26. I think it's natural for them to hype it up, but it's always great for me to be with Nate Griffin, and you're seeing a segment we shot this morning. He was out at Sugar Land. I was here in the home studio, but it's great the different voices that Fox 26 is bringing in. Victor, let's talk about that piece of it, which is the many voices now that are talking about the sport, that are talking about the World Cup. Overall positive in my book, number one. And I think we want the word to spread about the beauty and the emotion of our sport.
Absolutely. And we talked about this before. Naturally, because of the popularity of the World Cup and the numbers that we knew were going to show up, there was going to have to be mainstream media coverage. And I think, or at least I was hopeful that for a lot of mainstream outlets, it would be sort of an eye-opener. And I think it's starting to be. At least I'm at the way I'm looking at, and I don't mean this with Fox. I'm just talking in general. Sure. At the way I see some of these stations cover it, I think there is still a little bit of naiveness of how popular the sport is, how many people would turn up. I think there's some outlets that are surprised, again, of how early fans were out there for some of these games. And I think they'll be more surprised that's not just the opening match, that as the tournament goes on, there will be more fans that turn out, and it's not going to be just Mexico fans. It's going to be different nationalities, different jerseys. And I think all of that, again, the other thing, the Democratic Republic of Congo arrived today in
Correct.
Houston. That was another story. So I think all these things are we've seen international soccer pass through Houston, Texas before. I think now they're forced to cover it because of the magnitude of the World Cup. And I think now it what maybe could have been an eye-opening experience before, that they didn't have a chance to cover soccer. Now they're starting to see it. And of course, the international media that comes along as well, and that they're able to partake in that, the international fans that are starting to arrive. And we're just talking about our home city, but obviously we look all around the country, across the three countries, and it's the same story elsewhere. Obviously, Mexico has a different affinity for covering the sport. So there's, that's a different situation. Canada, I would say maybe still has some a little bit more affinity for soccer or football, the way it's covered globally. But I think certainly in the U.S., and you just mentioned there, Sugarland having their own watch party. It's not just a fan festival. It's all around town. It's different bars that are trying to get in on this. And I think learning, again, about the popularity of the sport. I think this is eye-opening for a lot of people. And this is what's going to cause more growth in the sport in this
Sure.
country. And again, for guys like you and me, this is no surprise. This is a big welcome that we've been anticipating.
Look, we live this every day, Victor, you and I, because we're blessed to be part of the sport every day at different levels.
Well, and we grew up with it or grown with it.
That's correct. I mean, culturally, we watch it, and whether or not it was in the United States, Canada, and Mexico, whether or not it was on the local stations reminding us of what time the games are, we would find a way to do it. I remember watching 1982 Spain and finding a way to watch the games, even deferred, even the day after. It's something for many of us that's a passion. What is impressive, Victor, is the diversity, of course, that we have in this city, that we have in Texas, and how we are brought together. Sure, let's cheer for Mexico. We have so many people that today we're cheering Mexico. Tomorrow they're going to put on the Stars and Stripes.
US jersey.
Exactly, put on that jersey, and the joy is the same. The moment of a great play, of a score, lifts us all. And that's what I want to be more contagious. When I was a younger man, I would criticize those, Victor, that didn't know what offside was, that didn't know how to pronounce certain names of teams, that didn't know the history. But you know what? That to me is irrelevant. This is bringing us together. That really, to me, is a message I think we need to scream loud. If you're joining us for the first time, friends, here on our coverage, if you don't know what soccer is, it doesn't matter. There's so many ways you can still get something out of this, Victor, by the feeling, by the emotion, and even watching others, the way it's so important for support of a nation. I was watching the NBA Finals, Victor, and the Knicks coming back to defeat San Antonio in, what would that be, Game 4? To go up 3-1. That emotion, that moment, bringing so many people together. We get to see this almost every day now, Victor, because of the World Cup.
Yeah, this is not just in the U.S., and this is more global than basketball even. And again, you're starting to see any corner of social media, what it means in different sides of the world, what people, in other countries think of what U.S. hosting, Mexico hosting, Canada hosting.
Yeah.
Again, now that tourists are starting to file into the country, and some tourists have gone viral for what their comments have been about just spending a few days in the United States. And again, there'll be more and more filing in, and there'll be more coverage as as international media is here locally, and covering some of these stories and talking to people and different angles. So yeah, I mean, I think this was just the first taste, and it was a big unraveling for just even day one. I think the opening match knocked it out of the water. For these fan festivals, it was one game and there was a big gap to that second game. We're going to have consecutive days, basically almost 2 weeks, where we have 4 games in the day.
Get ready.
From
it's a
different
marathon.
parts of the country. Right. And so some of these fan fests are going to have, Swiss jerseys followed by Brazilian jerseys and so on and so forth. Right. So again, I think that's why I say I think this is going to be very eye-opening for media in the United States, because I think when you're looking for ratings, when you're looking for where the dollars are, the advertising dollars, look, there's a sport we could have been making money off all along that's just as big, if not bigger, no disrespect, than the NFL.
100% agree, Victor. You and I live it every day. Friends, we thank all of you that are watching us, that are following us. Let's get this in quick, Victor, before we say buenas noches, by the way, this evening. But tomorrow's matches, Victor, this is important. We talked about the groups, but Canada hosting in Toronto, and then the nightcap, Houston time, pretty late. So we'll be on after that, around 10 p.m. Central. How do you see those two matches? You already talked a little bit about Canada looking for their first win in a World Cup, and for the USA, a huge opportunity at SoFi.
Yeah, Bosnia and Herzegovina, I think debut, if I'm not mistaken, or at least obviously a historic game for them. But again, we're going to have, just like the game in Mexico City, we're going to have the opening ceremonies in Canada and the USA respectively. So these are going to be big Showtime games. I would expect the host to kind of be in the same situation as Mexico. Because again, you saw that South Korea Czechia game, right? Where it was a little bit more competitive, because you could see, both teams are kind of, they don't have that same pressure of being the host, of just those extra nerves, right? we're going to see Canada and what's going to be, I think, their only game in Toronto. And what that's going to be, although they've had good history there. And in the United States, certainly they could have a complicated group if they don't get a good result here against Paraguay. And then obviously, again, similar to Mexico, a lot of doubts coming in, a lot of conversation, criticism. What's the coach doing? But when, that ball rolls and it's kickoff, I think it's, everybody supporting the U.S. And we'll see if the players respond to that or if they get consumed a little bit by the bright lights of being the host nation.
Victor, what I want to do is I want to be Infantino, the president of FIFA. We saw him in Mexico
Just
City.
go all the games.
Right? We saw him in Guadalajara. Is he going to tomorrow be in Toronto and then end up in Los Angeles?
Absolutely.
That's
I would count on
called jet setting. Can I carry his luggage? That would be amazing, wouldn't it?
Well, he's the president of FIFA, and he's got to be present at these opening matches.
Quickly, before the start of the tournament yesterday,
it's no different than being the commissioner of the league, and when Don Garber does it in MLS or Adam Silver in the NBA.
Yeah. He has to represent. There's so much to talk about, Victor. Victor, if you can go to social media before I screw it up, let me know if anyone has questions, comments. We appreciate all of you that are following us. Alex Parra, Victor Araiza will be with you every evening. That's our commitment. We may not be on for another hour, or for an hour. We may be on for a couple of minutes, kind of recapping the day, certainly talking about the important stories, not only in the tournament, but also Texas-centric and Houston-centric. Victor, you're getting ready. We're getting ready for the match at what we call still NRG, but at Houston Stadium. That'll be a big one. We'll be previewing and talking about that. Victor, before we go tonight, any other messages? I think it's about staying tuned to our coverage and then hearing the different voices that are out there and enjoying this time. And I'm saying this, pace ourselves, because this is a marathon. We still have a long way to go.
Yeah, we got Katie Umanya, who's going to be helping us with our photography here in some of these games. Shout out there on social media. By the way, because you mentioned the inclement weather too. Houston obviously having and listen, they had I believe an ambulance on site or medics on site for some of these fans that may be overheating, like getting enough water, not wearing hats. So there's naturally going to be some of that, and I think people will be more prepared. Toronto had, I believe, they had to cancel their party, their fan festival, their watch party.
Because of snow?
No, because, inclement weather. And they had a line going in. Yeah, so I think, so people were obviously turned away, and they weren't happy because they wanted to watch the game on the big screen. So we'll get some of that stuff, but I think overall you're seeing all over Dallas, again, multiple watch parties. Austin, not a FIFA city, so they don't have the fan festival, but because of the soccer celebration series that MLS is doing across their clubs, big turnout at Auditorium Shores. So again, I think we're going to see all these tremendous images from all around our country enjoying the sport. And I would say it really isn't a lot of surprise because I think a lot of these people already live here. And it's one of those where if you build it, they will come because, there's a watch party now, big watch party for the World Cup. They would have watched it anyways, at home, at a bar, wherever. Now they're just congregating at these events that have been organized by, credit to them, Major League Soccer and FIFA.
Victor, again, my plan is hopefully, I see this as a buffet. I go to a lot of buffets, as you can probably see, ladies and gentlemen. But you know what? I want to spend some time with the family and being at home and enjoying that piece. Then feeling the energy of being in the stadium. Then feeling the energy of being at a watch party. Then feeling the energy of being, quote unquote, with strangers, maybe at a bar where there's 20, 30 people. There's so many ways you can get a feel for this, and the conversations that go on about it, and the interest, and that's some of the magic and the beauty of it. And that's not even diving in yet, Victor, into what we're seeing on the field, the heroes for many that will come out of this, the amazing plays, the memories that we will hopefully have for the rest of our lives. So a lot to talk about. Victor, before we say goodbye, any social media questions, please let me know. If not, friends, we want to invite you to continue with our coverage. Tomorrow we'll be talking about Canada versus Bosnia and Herzegovina, the match that will be during the day, 2 o'clock Houston time from Toronto, and also the nightcap, if you will, USA versus Paraguay from Los Angeles Stadium. That's starting at 8 o'clock Central. So the way we plan this out, we hope to be back with you on the air, live, by the way, this way, around 10 o'clock Central. Victor, I'll give you the last word, and then we'll say, muy buenas noches.
No, get some rest, people, because we're going to have a lot of games for the next couple months. So it's very exciting, and it's almost unbelievable that it's already here. It's
already here. Victor, it's always great to be with you. I appreciate all your work and your work to come in our coverage. Friends, on behalf of Victor, on behalf of our production staff, because it's not just Alex Parra here with the jacket on. It's so many people that are working behind the scenes, and will continue to bring you coverage. So on behalf of all of us, have a great evening. Keep up with us here on Deportes Nation and Soccer Texas. We'll be talking about this FIFA World Cup 2026, without a doubt, an amazing start today and a lot more to go. So have a great evening. To the rest of you, please follow us on social media. Send us your comments, your questions. We'll be back live tomorrow evening. Have a great night.